Martian. Jim was lonely at school. The main reason for this was that a few weeks before he had told everyone in his class about the Martian who lived with him. No one believed him. Everyone laughed at him. Now, each Monday morning when Mrs. Telcar asked about their weekend, someone, usually Stuart or one of Stuart's gang, put their hand up and said, "No need to ask Jim. He probably spent it with his Martian." And the room would fill with 10-year-old snigger noises. Unlike some people who get teased, Jim was not quiet. "I did spend the weekend with my Martian, actually," he would say at morning break in quite a fierce way. "For God's sake, Jim," said Annalisa Potts, "there's no way you can have a Martian. Martians don't exist. It has been proved time and again that Mars is much too cold to sustain life." Annalisa Potts held herself to be the most intelligent person in the school, and probably the whole town. She watched every single astronomy programme that was ever shown on television and knew very well that she knew exactly what she was talking about. "They always say that," spat Jim, "but they mean Mars is too cold to sustain our kind of life. It isn't too cold to sustain Martians. Martians love the cold." Annalisa Potts rolled her eyes and puffed. Stuart pushed his face into Jim's space. "Loser," he sang. "It's true," said Jim. "Mars is having a warm patch at the moment. It's been knocked a bit closer to the sun by something or other, and so all the Martians have left because they're in grave danger of melting. And so, like I told you before, one of them landed in our garden when there was all that snow, and we keep it in the freezer." "Do you think we're idiots?" screeched Annalisa Potts. Jim sulked. What was the point of interesting things happening to you if no one believed you when you told them about it? "Does it matter?" said Mum that evening. They were sitting in front of the open freezer with the big atlas, showing pictures of the Earth to the Martian, who was copying them neatly into a little notebook Jim had bought for it at the 99p shop. "You know it's true. Does it matter whether other people believe it or not?" "It would be nice," said Jim. "I believe people when they tell me things. Why don't they believe me?" "They lack imagination," said Mum. "Poor them." She put the atlas down, said "night" to the Martian, blew it a kiss and closed the freezer door. "Time you were in bed too, Jim," she said. Jim tutted. "Look, if it bothers you that much," said Mum, "why don't I get the picnic cooler box out tomorrow morning, pop the Martian in it with a few ice packs, and you can take it to school and show the class." Jim leapt out of the kitchen chair. "Really? Oh my God, that'd be fantastic!" Everyone turned and stared next morning as Jim staggered into the classroom with the big green cooler box. He put it gently onto Mrs. Telcar's desk and said something to her. Mrs. Telcar's eyebrows practically flew off into orbit, and she said, "Goodness me!" and then, "Okay." She clapped her hands loudly. "Settle down now, everyone. We have a little treat this morning. Jim here has kindly brought in his Martian so that we can all see it for ourselves." The whole class stared at her with their mouths hanging open, so they all looked much more stupid than usual, Jim thought. Mrs. Telcar gave a little laugh. "Right! I want you all to gather in a wide semicircle around my desk, quietly." Once everyone was gathered, Mrs. Telcar gave Jim a solemn nod, and he lifted the lid off the cooler box and put both hands inside. When he took the Martian out of the box, the familiar 10-year-old snigger noises started again. "That's not a Martian, you idiot," said Stuart. "That's a jelly." "It is a Martian, actually," said Jim. "Martians happen to look like jelly." This is true, in fact, though not many people are aware of it. Martians look very similar to the kind of jelly you see in the middle of a table at a birthday party. Like this. Look. It was understandable, therefore, that Stuart mistook the Martian for a jelly, especially as Jim's Martian was dark pink, which gave everyone the impression that it was raspberry flavoured. "If it's a Martian," said Annalisa Potts in quite a sarcastic way, "then where are its eyes and mouth and other features?" Jim sighed. He hadn't bargained for all their stupid questions. "Its eyes and mouth are shut," he explained slowly to annoy Annalisa. "When it opens them, you can see them. It might not feel like opening them, so you might not be able to see them today." Annalisa Potts laughed, exactly like someone who thinks they know everything. "Well," she said, "how very convenient." Stuart stepped forward and poked the Martian with his shatterproof ruler. "Stuart!" said Mrs. Telcar sharply. "Don't worry, Mrs. Telcar," said Stuart. "It's only a jelly." He prodded the Martian again and taunted it. "Come on, space jelly, open your eyes." The rest of the class started laughing loudly as the Martian wobbled under Stuart's ruler. They began to chant, "Jelly on a plate, jelly on a plate, wibble wobble, jelly on a plate." The Martian opened its eyes and everyone gasped, except Jim. The Martian opened its mouth and everyone screamed, except Jim. Jim smiled. A Martian can open its mouth really wide, so wide in fact that it looks as though the whole Martian has turned into one giant open mouth. The classroom door could have fitted inside Jim's Martian's mouth. But Jim's Martian didn't eat the classroom door. Jim's Martian ate Stuart. When Stuart's parents were told what had happened, they were quite upset. They insisted that the Martian give Stuart back, but the Martian refused. Stuart's dad threatened to melt the Martian, but he never got the chance. A couple of nights after eating Stuart, the Martian wandered into Jim's bedroom and looked at the window. Jim opened the curtains to see a small golden spaceship hovering outside. Jim smiled at the Martian, opened the window and said goodbye. As the weeks went by, Jim started to forget about the Martian. And everyone at school forgot about Stuart almost immediately. One night in the autumn, though, Jim woke up because of a noise. He opened his curtains and saw another golden spaceship outside. Sitting at the steering wheel was Stuart, who was actually now half Stuart, half jelly. Stuart grinned at Jim and flew off. Jim went back to sleep in a bad mood because he couldn't understand why some people have all the luck